Well, right off the bat, can I ask you, how did you even get into comedy, whether as an interest, a hobby, into a career? Were there significant moments of that
Yeah.
journey of how that came together?
Yeah, for sure. So I have wild comedy come up story. We did my church did improv comedy on campus as like a kind of like an outreach type idea.
Oh, cool.
So our college ministry, there were some guys in our college ministry that had traveled to a local improv comedy school called SAC Comedy Lab in Orlando, and they had learned some things, brought it back. We had this like unbelievable space on our campus. It was a building the church bought, used to be a bar, and they converted it into like the young adult room, like the college age kind of room. And we had this wildly talented guy that was doing improv, and he's a painter. His name was Barrick, and he decked this whole room. It was just like this magical space. So they started doing improv, and then of course, like just happens in these little communities. All the high school kids are like, "We want to do it too." They're so cool. So then our high school group started it, and there was this like lineage for a bit that found its way to me. So we had this in-house comedy team, and I was like, "That looks like fun." And I loved the show Whose Line Is It Anyway on
Yeah,
TV.
yeah.
Like that was I just like thought that was the funniest thing, and I always kind of liked comedy, but like just very pivotal moment when that my church community gave me the opportunity to sort of get up on a stage, and especially with improv, I'm like, honestly, I think they're kind of crazy to tell like a bunch of high school kids,
Yeah.
hey, go, we don't even know what you're gonna say. Just go up there and say it. Like it was like that's a lot of trust.
Was it your
And
youth pastor? Were you saying was trying to kind of leading this?
yeah, yeah. So we had
Okay,
a in-house improv team and an in-house sketch comedy team.
okay.
So they we both of those things were going on. And yeah, he would, and it was such a in hindsight, obviously, it's so cool to like you were able to invite your friends because of course you want them to see your show. And yeah, so that's how I got started. Was doing that. Then I there was a group that was also born out of that called Isaac Improv that toured the country and did improv comedy across the country, even internationally. And we would do like camps, retreats, fundraisers, like college campus work, that kind of thing. So I traveled and did that for a couple of years. And then out of that was I kind of after traveling for several years, I had a kid and then another kid and was married through all that and was just kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to traveling wasn't as fun as when you're super
Yeah,
young, you're
yeah.
like, I want to go everywhere. I want to do it. Like it's so great. And then all of a sudden you have this like, oh man, it really like hurts to leave home. So the Bible's Funny was born out of a transition time in my kind of comedic life where I was like, yeah, I'd love to be able to kind of control some of this and have more say over when I'm doing stuff. And so that's how the Bible's funny and
That's
among many,
wild. I've never heard of a church excuse me, having a comedy or improv ministry. Have you seen that since or at the time,
no,
or
no,
is
I
it?
I did a podcast semi recently with a guy who randomly was like, "Oh, we actually had that too," which I thought was wild. I forget where he was based out of though. So yeah, no, I don't think it's very common, and I'm really grateful for it because
Yeah,
a lot of people musically get their start that way. A
sure.
lot of people their first time singing on a stage or playing an instrument on a stage might be in a church context. There's a lot of capacity to sort of affirm giftings in creative areas inside of that church context. So for me, it was just a gift. I mean, and obviously a church audience is very forgiving.
Yeah.
So they're very nice and very friendly and they want you to do well versus like coming up through a comedy club. So yeah, no, I've not seen really any other than that one other guy who had anything like that.
Whether before that or after you started in the improv group, like were there comedians, Christian or otherwise, who really kind of shaped your voice or showed you what comedy could do, what the potential was for it for
Yeah,
you?
the most like the one that's like so close to my heart is Robin Williams.
Okay.
I came up on Robin Williams and doing the genie for Aladdin, doing Mrs. Doubtfire. Like just a lot of those just super Jumanji. I mean, you just had so many iconic movies that were right in and I just was like he felt so safe, but also so funny, just
Yeah.
relentlessly funny, but also like you could tell there was a real person here. He just was like to me, he was someone I just immediately kind of imprinted on me. Also an improv guy, which was cool. But other than that, I mean, I just kind of soaked it up. Like I just loved I just love comedy. I mean, I got big into the Monty Python stuff. I thought that was
Okay.
super funny. Just a lot of
Did your
a lot.
parents give you a fair bit of license kind of in exploring some of those things?
They did. Oh
Sweet.
my goodness. I got just the luckiest draw when it came to parents. They really were very, very cool about like all of it. And so, you know, of course they were smart. It wasn't like this untethered. But
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I could just see like I think it's about high school, maybe right at a high school. Chappelle Show was out, and that was a really big like, oh man, what he's doing is
Yeah.
incredible. I know, and I never was met with like, no, you can't watch it. I think they were
Mhm.
not high. I do think they got swept up in the Simpsons stuff a little bit. Like I
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
allowed to watch the Simpsons.
Yeah, same here, man. I've still
Um,
never seen an episode at 40 years old because I'm like,
it's
and it's
it,
pretty late to get into it now after like 50 seasons or whatever it is.
you're getting in late, but I gotta tell you, I appreciate it.
You're in?
It's some clever writing
Okay.
on the Simpsons, and they've been at it for a long time. And
Oh,
so
I mean, I
they,
I laugh at all the quotes from all my friends and everything. Like it's clearly a hilarious thing, and I look back and
yeah,
laugh that my parents kind of that was the one that like, I don't think we should watch that. I
yeah. It
wish
was,
I
you
did,
know.
but yeah,
The old eat my shorts. You know, Bart's running around
yeah,
saying eat my shorts, and the
yeah.
parents were just like, we can't be taught.
Don't
I
know
don't
what to
know,
do with that.
frankly, don't know what that phrase means or has ever known what it means. It's certainly not kind. I guess we can all agree, but yeah, that was an alarm bell for my
Yeah,
parents.
yeah. That's funny. Uh, you know, Robin Williams, for me, as much as his movies, I have always loved his like late night talk show appearances.
Oh my
I
goodness.
feel like I watch those, you know, often maybe annually or whatever, go back through them because those are like, those are performances in
Yeah.
themselves. That guy is just on another level.
Yeah, and like yeah, I definitely, of course, the more you think they come up, but like Will Ferrell was kind of like a next, like, and he was
Yeah, yeah.
classic for
That's a
his
good
late
point.
night appearance. Like just people that were just they were just funny all the time. Like they just
Hmm.
were just oozed this thing. And also felt like they were kind. Like, and I loved hearing the story. You hear all the stories about Robin Williams, and just what seemed like just a really great person as well.
Yeah.
So that I thought came out while he was performing. But yeah, Will Ferrell kind of to me carried on the late night
Yeah, that's
appearance
a good
legacy.
point.
Like
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
not here to just ask me about, you know, my
Yeah.
kids. Like I'm showing up as Little
Yeah, he
Debbie from
comes
the
with the
Little Debbie
character and
snacks. Yeah.
yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
Is there a difference, do you think, between making people laugh and helping people think? Is that just one stream of
Mhm.
comedy? Do the best comics manage to do both of those things?
I think so. I think so. I think it's like anything else, any other art form. Like there's going to be different shades and different artists are going to have different perspectives. I think some comedians do a really great job of helping you see something.
Hmm.
There's a great author, and I'm not going to remember her name off the top of my head, but her quote is like, "Tell the truth, but tell it slant." And that's kind of like humor does that, right? So it's like it's a thing, it's an observation, or it's a real thing. But if you can make it funny, if you can make it this like agreed upon observation, all of a sudden it can get into places that were blocked before. So like
Yeah.
I can't really like talk about this. Well, if it's funny, I can kind of let more in because it's making me laugh. And it's got this like rhythm and meter to
Like it
it.
can be
So
confrontational almost in like a prophetic way.
yeah. Oh, for sure. There's definitely a relationship between comedy and prophecy. Like there's just
Hmm.
to me, you're just like comedians are so often on the front line of identifying something, calling out something that, you know, society is overlooking or we're spending too much time thinking about, we're spending not enough time thinking about, we've moved past far too quickly. There's definitely something in there because that's where the comedy is. Like comedy is about sort of like misdirection and things that should be a way that aren't that way. And that's those are all of the basic ingredients of comedy. So I think it's a really natural relationship between those two. But I also definitely defend that like comedy can just be funny. Like it's
Yeah.
okay. It's also like joy for the sake of joy is not wrong. Like we don't need to be ashamed of that. That
Like
like
Robin
we're
Williams versus Louis C.K.
sure.
Like Robin Williams, he might have been prophetic in some ways, but more, I feel like more or less he was just trying to have fun, make people laugh.
just bring some joy into the world. And he did. Robin would go on to do like some of the more serious roles, and certainly, you know,
Sure.
do some
Yeah.
other things with his career. But yeah, comedically speaking, you know, bulk of Will Ferrell's career comes to mind. Like you're making movies like Blades of Glory and like
Yeah.
just kicking and
Yeah.
screaming. It's just funny. Like they're just
Yeah.
funny. Adam Sandler's another great one, man. He's just out there making funny
Yeah. That's a
movies. Like
good point.
that's his whole thing. Like it's a funny movie, and it has a nice moral in there, and that has a tradition that goes back to like Shakespearean times where the comedies, you know, just ended in a certain way and the tragedies ended a different way. So it buttons up a certain way, but comedy is a great way to share truth. I think it's Jerry Seinfeld has a great quote about like he really balks at the idea of like it's funny because it's true. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's not by definition correct because there's a lot of true things that aren't funny at all. Like there's just like you could just I'm sitting on a chair right now. It's not funny. It's true, but it's not funny. So there's definitely like a range in there, and I
Mhm.
always appreciate comedians who can you know give share insights because it's a great way to do that. And then I hold as much space for comedians that are just bringing joy into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you think some of the skill though of some comedians is that they can take things that are just basic truths, like you're sitting in a chair? Like I feel like Chappelle maybe does this well. It takes something that is inherently not funny and give humor to it, especially in a way that
yeah,
he could talk about tragedy, shortly after a tragedy's happened and somehow make you laugh about it. Not like laugh at it, but find humor in it.
yeah. Yeah, that's a real interesting thing. I think a lot of comedians would say that is an interesting dichotomy you live with because you can't turn it off. Like
Yeah,
you just can't. Every comedian I know is like, um, I'm like really haphazardly quoting so many people, but I want to say it was Steve Harvey was talking at one point, and he was saying like, when the tragedy strikes, the jokes come right away. And he's like, I know that's hard to hear, but like that's how you're wired. Like, and
sure. Yeah,
and then you learn discernment to go like, well, it's not a time for jokes right now. Like we're all sad. We are at a funeral. We're not going to be making jokes. But the role in a community of the comedian to bring healing after a tragedy or to be there to say like hey you can laugh again at some point.
yeah.
I just had this really interesting time in our family where I had a family member die really suddenly and tragically, and so we all came and showed up for my uncle. And it was like it was wild because there was a lot of laughter, and like there was a lot, not many times where everybody on this side of the family is together. And it really kind of sent me thinking like I think this is like in some ways this is the gift that is laughter, and in that this is humanity at its core, is that in the
Yeah.
middle of this grief and this tragedy that this seed of joy just doesn't die. Like as scorched as the earth seems, almost immediately there's that little plant shooting up through the rubble, and it's joy and it's still there. um and so
Isn't there sometimes though like this little seed in your mind as you're laughing at the funeral that's like, is this okay? Is
is this
this
okay?
right? But then you go
Yeah,
with it and like it is, but it like almost feels
yeah. But
wrong.
we were
But
leaving
it's
this gathering, and you're just like that's where my head was. I was like, was that okay that we had that much
yeah,
fun? Like that almost doesn't seem okay. And then it was like, I don't know, I think sometimes that's the gift, is that life is going to keep going on, and that's like one of the better things you can give to somebody in that time is like, and again, this is not that you show up with your knock knock jokes. Like there's a lot of give and take here on like
yeah, yeah,
where are they at, what are they processing. Like I said, there's a ton of discernment that goes into that. But yeah, I think there's a gift in being able to and that was, I mean, Chappelle's really a master of that, of like, you know, how much can I lean into a touchy, really sensitive subject and also like thread the needle to the joke I'm trying to make. And I know
yeah.
that almost like I know there are these landmines on every side, and I'm trying to put every foot where it needs to go. And I thought, man, especially those seasons of the Chappelle Show, I was like, oh, this is a masterclass on how you do this and
Yeah.
how you like facilitate what ends up, if you're really like taking it for the amount of cleverness that it is, it should make you think about stuff a little differently.
Mhm.
But certainly bringing a lot of joy into some spaces that typically that's not a word you would use.
Is there a piece of that though? Like even thinking of the Chappelle show uh, or the laughing at the funeral, like is the propheticness of comedy, is it always intentional or is there kind of a mysterious piece of it that you can't really plan for that just kind of happens without planning? Like you didn't know that this was going to impact people like it did or connect like it did, but like is there some
Oh,
level of comedy that's just unplanned?
100%, a
Okay.
100%. And I think some of what you're describing is how will it land? And
Hmm.
that is like the ultimate question mark. Like you sit here and you make a meme every day and you are just like thrilled with one of them, or you make a podcast episode, or you do a stand-up joke, whatever your medium of comedy is. And you're like, oh man, I think that was funny. Like that was I really like that one. And it just does not hit. You're just like, doggone it. And then you do one that you're like, I don't know, I guess that'll work. I'll try it out. And it'll hit with everybody. It just
Yeah.
resonates and goes crazy. And you're just like, wow, I just there's a degree to which I want you're in the work of the thing and you're making it, you're putting it out. And then there's like a degree of control when you let that thing out into the world that you're like, at that point, I don't control it anymore. So if it's received as like everybody thinks it's super funny and they share it a billion times, and that obviously feels good. And then sometimes you let it out in the world and everybody's like, oh well, no, that one didn't really hit with me.
Well, what
You
about
just
this angle of it? Like, do you ever just say you're planning just for something to be funny and then it has this prophetic voice that you didn't plan for?
mm,
Like, do you think those ever, like in terms of that prophetic confrontational part, do you think that part sometimes is unplanned? Like, man, I was just trying to be funny. I didn't think this was gonna speak to, I don't know,
yeah.
this with this tone or like,
Yeah. I mean,
does
I
that
do
make
think
sense?
it does. And I think it's in the same vein
Okay.
in that just like once you release it,
Hmm.
you've released it. And so that might make somebody think about something a different way that you didn't even,
Yeah.
and again, that's just, this is stuff that's like, it's just across the board for all forms of art is like
Sure.
you're just, you as the creator, the comedian, in the case of our conversation, you can just stay in the work and be true to the work and the craft of it. And then at some point it's going to go out there and become the thing. Like, I believe the the whole Bill Cosby like moment in pop culture came like reared up because of a stand-up routine by, I can remember that comedian's name either off the top of my head, but he did a
Like the
bit.
whole kind of movement, like the Me Too, like all like that
Yeah, it
came out
was
of a.
kind of, it had
Oh
been
wow,
dormant. I mean, the information that was out there. Like it was
about
like
Cosby.
there were reports,
Okay.
there were all that stuff had been in the weeds. And then this comedian came up and was making a joke about something else he said and said like, Google this. Like this is who this guy is. This is his history. And that really like got a ball rolling of like people looked that up because it's a really famous comedian, and doggone it, if I prepped better for podcasts, I'd remember his name. But he,
Oh,
yeah.
interesting.
So do you think like if you ask that guy, like he had that bit in his set, but
Yeah.
if you'd have been like, do you think that this will bring maybe a semblance of justice to a lot of people who were hurt
Mhm.
by choices he made? I don't know that he would have said like, "Oh yeah, definitely, this is the thing that's going to do the thing." But
Yeah.
there's moments like that where you see like that's the thing that gets the ball rolling and gets people looking into something, and it gets introduced in this really subversive kind of way. Like you don't see it coming. He
Mhm.
didn't go on. You expect those messages to come other ways, not from a stand up on a stage with a
Sure.
mic. You
Yeah.
expect it to come through a campaign that was designed around this, that, and the other. So that's the kind of thing that makes me think of. So I think, yeah, I definitely think in some ways comedy has a really beautiful way. Um, and just like, yeah, it just makes me think of like a painting. Like it's to me, it's this like that is going to hit you in a very different, it might make you see something wildly different
Yeah.
than you did before. Could the artist have known? Like, probably not. Probably, there's no way an artist can know all the ways that their art is going to impact everybody and the thoughts that it might inspire.
In an increasingly culture age of outrage, do you think comedy is getting riskier or more essential?
What a great question. Um, I don't know. I mean, I think comedy is just so human that it's really always been there's always been shades. I don't think we're experiencing anything that's like outside of the norm. Like I know
Yeah.
what you're doing in the moment feels so present and right now and so like it's never been like this before. But then when you look at like the race riots and like this is like I'm talking in like the 70s. Like there's other times where people are doing comedy and it's a pretty hostile cultural moment is now the most hostile maybe I don't know like I don't know how you can like metric measure that but
Yeah, sure.
comedy has always found the way to go like all right well this is the comedy that is needed right now or these are the voices that are being born out of this age are presenting like this and this is what comedy looks like right now um so I would say to get any more risky I think there's just always been a range and so there
Yeah.
are always going to be people who sort of set out to push the envelope and
Hmm.
they're okay with sort of making people feel uncomfortable and to some degree it's why they do what they do. And then there's always going to be people who live more in the middle and they're just a little bit more like just trying to bring joy to everybody through more uh, neutral topics. So I don't know that this moment is for comedy is as wildly different as we said. Like, I know there's been
We definitely
discrepancy of
make,
thought
I
on
mean,
that.
the conversation definitely makes it seem like that. I think you're right. But there's a lot of comedians saying, I don't know,
There's a
highlighting the dangers and like everyone's like, they're gonna ruin comedy and they're taking it. Like I feel like there's fear-based messages coming from comedians.
from
But
comedians,
you're
yeah, and
probably
I
right
mean,
that like it's this has happened before.
it's happened before, and it's like to some degree, it's like yeah, there might be things being brought up that you need to consider that you didn't consider before. I remember the early 2000s, like there was this moment where maybe like more like the mid 2000s 2010-ish where I just felt like comedy had drifted into this like incredibly raunchy place and
Yeah.
it sort of like bottomed out in like and just I don't know there's one like open mic night in particular I went to support a friend and it was just like good golly like we're just not there's just a carelessness to this isn't even crafted this is
Yeah.
just shock you're just trying to shock the audience all the time and for there to be a degree of like that's actually not we don't need to be doing that like
Yeah.
is like there's almost a reconciliation more than there is like a impingement it's like
Hmm.
yeah I mean if what you're saying is sort of like icky and now everybody's instead of like allowing for it they're like that's an icky thing to say um you are still a human walking the earth with us just because you have a mic on a stand-up stage you're still one of us you still have to come off that stage and behave like normally to a
Yeah.
degree
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I understand what the comedians are saying, which is like comedy needs to have a space to push the envelope, and there's a degree to which if you can never get at all over the edge, then you're never going to get very close to the edge because you're gonna just err on the side of like
Sure.
safety. And so I think that's my generalized message of what they're saying. And I think that maybe there was a little blip moment where we all were like in an ultra sensitive place that maybe like this like peak of what we were doing with what was going on with cancel culture and that type of thing, where it was just like, wow, you feel really on eggshells about saying the wrong thing. But to me, it felt like that just also found its way back to even to say like, yes, there's degrees to this. There's people who have made really awful decisions that hurt a ton of people and they need to be held accountable. And then there's people that did the wrong thing here, once said something that they shouldn't have said, and their entire life does not need to be eviscerated if
Yeah.
they recognize the error of their ways and they've taken steps to take accountability and make changes so it just feels like it's evening out and it feels like to a degree it's like this is the art guys like this is we're always going to be playing this game and there's the cultural circumstances are always going to be changing and the art of comedy is like okay now be funny in this one now be funny in this one um yeah
I mean, this is the same question that I guess musicians get asked all the time. It's probably the same answer, but is there such a thing as Christian comedy? Is that a,
Uh,
I mean, you're
yeah.
in that category. Is that a
Yeah, I mean,
category?
like, I am a Christian and I do comedy, and I don't know, I can't really control the labels beyond that. Like,
Yeah.
and mine is very, like, it's about the Bible. Like, a lot of the jokes are about the
Yeah.
Bible and Christian movies, and like, so it's if that's what you call Christian comedy, that's fine. I do ascribe to, Christian is a fine noun and a terrible adjective. So it's like you are a Christian. I don't know if you label a Christian blank. That's tough for me because I just
Hmm.
don't know what does that mean. I don't really know what it means. Like I know there are non-Christians who play the Bible's funny card game, for example. So it's like
Okay.
and they have a good time with it, and it's the Bible, and it is its thing. They're having an interaction with the Bible, and this book means something probably different to me than it does to them. Um, and they're playing it. So those are the why that thing gets so why that label gets so funny sometimes. But like it's
Yeah.
for me it's like kind of like we would be so silly to say like no, I'm not a Christian. Like I am a Christian. I do comedy oriented around the Christian faith a lot of the times. Like it'd be hard to if you're using that label on me, I'm not going to stop you. But I don't. There's just like maybe a preconceived notion of like, well, if it's Christian um comedy, then it's going to be like, how does Moses make his coffee? He brews it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess the cheesiness, I don't like the cheesiness association. Um, but yeah, I think I welcome the label Christian comedian.
Can
That's
I
fine.
talk about the cheesiness for a second, and then we get
Yeah.
to the game? Do you think one of the struggles in Christian comedy, and maybe why it comes off cheesy sometimes, is
Mm,
that you're unlike other comedians? Maybe Christians are trying to spin two plates in the air at once. Like you're trying to, on the one hand, aim for somewhat safe laughs or whatever it is, while also trying to make meaningful content, and that you can. I mean, that's hard to do both, and so that you end
yeah.
up just focusing more on the safe laughs, and then it gets its cheesiness. But to do both well, to balance them, is a
Yeah.
hard thing. And I feel like I don't know, comedians outside of that only have one plate because they don't have this. Is
Right.
that made? Yeah, I don't.
It
Is
makes
that
total
a
sense. I,
okay?
I think you're right at the core of it. And I think just the issue with Christian creativity in general is that maybe the like not fun to talk about answer is a lot of the roads to getting your stuff made as a Christian musician, as a Christian filmmaker, as a Christian comedian, as a lot of the roads to getting your content out there, getting opportunities and things like that. They're going to sort of encourage you to stay in a particular lane that to appeal to like a mass general appeal audience. So then you have these other like factors coming in. Well, like you can only make music or that talks about these things, and you can't get too. To me, it's why you end up with maybe like a surplus of like, well, I don't want to get too specific about struggles because
Yeah,
I want to talk about the
yeah.
the valleys instead of saying a specific thing because I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable listening to the song. And so there's I think external forces that factor into that. To me, the most natural thing has just always been like I want to do comedy well. I
Yeah.
feel like it's a craft that I have a ton of respect for. Now I also have a set of principles that govern my life. And so what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to be disrespectful to the Bible. I don't aim to make people feel uncomfortable. Like that's not
Mhm.
something that is just not a realm of comedy that I've ever like connected with. It's not my personality. It's not. So it's always been like I'm gonna do the comedy in this space, and I'm gonna stay true to who I am, and that's been like the guiding principle. And then so thankful for the partners that have come around, like the publisher I got to work with for this game, and I
Mhm.
got get to do a book with them that's coming out next fall. Like,
Oh, sweet. A book,
dude,
obviously in line with the Bible is funny.
yeah, it's like a Bible was
Right.
funny
Okay.
devotional book. Like they're so supportive, and they've kind of come along and said like you're doing this great thing, and we want to come alongside and help you get that out. But I think a lot of people feel the pressure of like, well, this has to, like you said, I think it's just interesting to look at like the pressures other people feel, and they don't have this same sort of like responsibility that they have
Mhm.
to account for like just the most conservative realm of this audience group and also the mass general appeal. That's kind of what gets pulled in on some of those conversations. But I also would say, like, you look at somebody like Nate Bargatze and what he's doing,
That's who I
and
was, yeah,
he's
thinking
not
here.
sacrificed one bit of being a great comedian. Like
Yeah.
he to me has really embodied this, like, leading from the front kind of example of, like, I am who I am. Like, I
Yeah.
love my wife, I love my kids, I love my friends and my family. Like, he's this rising tide that's lifting all these boats connected to him, and he's true to himself. And also the comedy is happens to work for like a wide array of ages, and
He's
that's
kind of in
great.
this weird space though that like nobody really puts the Christian label on him
Right.
except Christians kind of behind the scenes are like, I think Nate Bargatze's a Christian, but like
That's
nobody
right.
really knows. So then he doesn't, I don't know, he doesn't look like he has kind of the Christian expectation that would
Yeah,
be put on the guy that's coming out of the church and like
that's right.
coming out of the Christian gate. I don't know.
Yeah, and to me, there's also like these forerunners that have done this thing. I mean, one comedian, Tim, he guy's like a Tim Hawkins. Tim Hawkins
Oh
was
yeah,
he
yeah,
was a
yeah.
super solid
The
comedian. He
guitar
did the
guy, right?
guitar, super funny guy. Like, and he lived in the Christian space, did like the church circuit. Been doing it for a long time. I think of like Switchfoot, who came out, John Foreman,
Yeah,
all of his work where he's like, I am a Christian. And not all of these are worship songs. Not
yeah,
all of these are anthems for your church. Some of them might be because that's who I am, but they're not all that.
yeah.
And so to me, there have been like examples that have gone before that I kind of try to like sort of geolocate off of and just see, like, I
Hmm.
like how he's just embodied that thing. And he's like, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to represent well. There, like you say, there is a distinct difference with John Foreman being talking with about his faith, I think, a little bit more, whereas Nate is not engaged on that level as much. Um, but John has, like, I'm sure there's like Christians that are disappointed that he didn't do more. You know what else
Yeah.
I love is the Colony House guys. They're great too. And
Oh, I
they're
haven't heard of them.
dude, Colony House is it's Stephen Curtis Chapman's son.
Okay.
And he just makes really cool music, and just like it's just like indie pop kind of music. And we see them every time they come to Tampa, and they're great. They're believers, and they just do their thing, and I love it. I guess what I'm trying to say with all that is there's people that have gone before and kind of demonstrated this to certain degrees, and there's people now that are doing it. So I would say I think that the road is getting a little bit more paved to kind of
Yeah,
be
yeah,
in this lane and not have to be, just I am the Gaither vocal band. Like, I
yeah,
am, this
yeah.
is where there's a lane that is that, and it's fine. There's nothing, it's fine that lane exists. There's just enough room for everybody.
Hmm.
And I want Christian artists to know they don't have to bend, that there's more ways to do this. So you don't have to, like, if you feel that pressure to water down or sanitize, like, you can, oh man, obviously, like, Forrest Frank right now is doing a really great
Yeah.
job of, like, the guy's just making great music. Like, that's his goal, and he loves Jesus. Like, and that's coming out. It's obviously coming out, but he's also under no pressure to make only worship albums. Like,
But I
that's
guess
what
I
he's
think
doing.
Forrest Frank, especially, and maybe this is true then of comedians and everything, like for a while, Christian hip hop it was pretty rough. It was
Oh
cheesy,
yeah.
but I loved it. I mean, that's what I grew up on, like Gospel Gangsters and
Yeah, yeah.
John Rubin and whatever, who are really entrenched in the Christian category. But
Mm-hmm.
in order for there to be a Forrest Frank, those guys had to exist, as you're saying,
Yeah.
like pave the way. But they had to pave in those more in the harder. I don't know. Yeah, I don't like Forrest couldn't just appear out of nowhere and live in this kind of crossover world. There
Yeah.
had
I mean,
to.
I think I hear what you're saying, and I think, you always want to, yes, I just want to totally co-sign with it. I started that sentence in a way that sounded like I was going to say something I
Oh,
disagreed,
you
and I
can
just
disagree by all
don't
means.
disagree. I just was also thinking, like, there was artists like Michael W. Smith who had a ton of general appeal. Like,
Sure.
I think of
Yeah.
who was the song Baby Baby?
Oh, Amy Grant, right?
Amy Grant. Like, they had a ton of like Christian and non-Christian appeal. So there was
Hmm.
like eras where that was far more common. And then in Christian hip hop, yeah, definitely needs to be mentioned. What Lecrae and KB, Tampa guy like myself, big
Yeah, yeah,
fan.
yeah, right.
Um they're doing Andy Mineo, like, they're doing really, really great work. And so to me, it's just, and it's showing, by the way. I mean, I'm like over here like a Christian music hype man, but like the Christian music, like, that's on the Billboard charts is like
Yeah.
unprecedented right now, because I
Hmm.
think we're seeing this happen. We're seeing Christian artists really live into themselves more fully, and not feel pressured to keep it inside of a really, really small boundary box.
Yeah.
The the art is getting better, and the joy inside of this that we all know comes uh, from this relationship with God is getting to more people, because
Hmm.
it's a better art form. Like you're doing better stuff with it.
Yeah. Even movies are getting better,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, The Chosen versus like some really
Oh,
old
come
70s,
on.
80s Jesus movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a whole segment
Uh,
on the podcast. We do Christian movies are funny. Well, I love looking back
okay.
at the old ones. Um, but yeah, 100%. Yeah, you look at what yeah, my goodness. Like what they've done with The Chosen is so impressive. Um, just the way that stuff is just showing up. It's really encouraging. I hope everybody's encouraged by it.
Yeah. Well, getting to the game, was there a moment, a specific moment when the idea for the Bible is funny clicked? I guess, or maybe this was in the church ministry, like where you started to see that the blend of scripture and humor could exist.
Yeah, so the project started with like a 2.5 year, very slow comb through the Bible. That was like
Yeah.
the genesis of the Bible's Funny project. And so it was like it was really looking close and just kind of like truthfully going like, is there anything here? I don't know
Like
what my
you specifically, you went
I
and you're
went
like, I'm going to do this Genesis to Revelation and see, I don't
yep.
know, underline things that are funny.
Exactly.
That's
Just
cool.
and a lot of that was born out of like a lack of awareness. Like that was
Okay.
when I tell the whole story, the long version, I guess. Like I just didn't even know. Like I'm running around. I grew up in church my whole life, as far as I could remember, and I would tell people just almost robotically, "Oh, the Bible's holy inspired word of God. It's this, that, and the other." Um, Also, like if you were like, "Well, what's going on in First Kings?" I'd be like, "Well, I don't know."
Yeah.
And so I was just like, how do you say that this is this and then give it, this much attention? So I was a real look yourself in the mirror moment. And then I went through for about 2.5 years and just like really poured over notes and just observations and of course
With
just
an
funny.
idea for a game in mind or just for
No,
your own
no,
sake?
the game is so funny. Like I just wanted to like do something kind of funny and creative, and that
Okay.
was that was the whole genesis of the Bible was funny. And then um I had thought I'd talked to some people even about like I think this might work for this style of game. It's like apples to apples style of game. But then I had a publisher that approached and was like, "What would you think about doing this?" And I was like, "I actually have some ideas
So
along
you
that
already had
line."
a bit of a following probably on Instagram just from
Yeah. Yeah.
observations.
Yep. So
Okay.
that work was going on, and then the opportunity for the game came up, and that's really been like, just like unbelievable. Like
Can I just get into the like
of
was
course,
that a, did that blow your mind like when you I don't know you saw an email or got a phone call that like someone was interested in this or was it more was
yeah,
it a slower I don't know process?
it's very much, it's just mind blowing. Like it's just like,
Was it an
oh,
email?
it was the email. It was an email from my buddy Leslie.
Oh,
Shouts
so
out
you
to
already knew
Leslie.
the you knew the person.
No, no, she's my
Oh
buddy
no.
now because we've
Oh
worked
sweet.
on a couple
Okay.
projects together. She's my editor. And I just was like, this is unreal
Like is
that
this a real email?
we're gonna get to do this. Like this is, and I love to work. Like
Okay.
I love to work. And so of course my brain just went right to like, we got a lot of work to do. We gotta work on this.
Did you
Um,
run and tell your wife or something?
I was with her. We were
Okay.
out of town, and I was with her, and I was like, somebody wants to do the game because we had discussed the game as like a existential concept.
Okay.
And so then I was like, oh, somebody actually asked about that specific thing. That's another thing I think creatives, you're always like, you hit these points where you're like, what am I gonna do next? Like
Hmm.
what's the next thing? So that moment was a real like, this is it. This is the thing.
Sweet.
And I'll say what was kind of cool about the game, kind of as close to like a direct like kind of hearing from God type of moment. We started wrapping up the game, and I was like, all right, what am I gonna do next? Like, what should work on the next project? Like, this is cool. We got some momentum going. Um, and I did feel like a very distinct sense of like, you need to stay on the game. And I was like, that was very weird for me. Like I said, I'm an improv comedian. Like, we don't do the same thing ever. Like, we're just like on to the next. And it was like, we need to stay on. And that's another thing I ended up sharing with my wife right away. I was like, I got this just very like, don't rush off of this. You need to stay on the game. And that was just like the beginning of like then there's these unbelievable things. So we did a run of that first game, the Bible's Funny card game, and it sold out before we went live. Like
So
the print run they did was gone. And so
that's
the
awesome.
last like marketing call, I'm like, all right, release day is a couple days away, and you're just doing your thing and wondering how this is gonna go. And they were like, hey, so we got some fun news. Like, we're sold out of stuff. So I was
And they
like,
probably don't tend to do games, right? Or
no, no, this was set, dude. I seriously, I can't shout out Leslie and the team enough because they've just been dream partners, and they went out on a limb for this. And yeah, they were like, we've never had a product, we've never had a product do something like this before. And so I was like, well, me neither. So that's fun. So we're learning new things together. So and it's just like the whole like heartbeat of the Bible is funny is I want people to interact with the Bible in a way that
Mm.
brings them joy and does what we were talking about earlier, kind of like gets this important word to them in a way that's like I want it to inspire more curiosity. I want you to be more interested. When you interact with the Bible is funny, I want you to be more interested in the Bible than when you left. And so to see people just send pictures all the time and they tag about them around the table with their friends and their family, and everybody's like playing this game and they're dealing with these kind of funny out of context parts of the Bible, and it just fills me up so much to see people enjoying it and having fun with it. So that's a lot of the background on the game.
there are, I mean, there's so many cards between the first volume and the second volume. I don't think I thought about this so much until talking to you that, like, y I mean, through from your journey from Genesis to Revelation, like every card, every scripture on each card, like you have thought of and wrestled with, like for it to end up on the card. Like there's just so many cards that could easy to think that this was just like a computed kind of thing. But
Yeah,
you have wrestled,
I
I don't know, wrestled right word, but like you've curated every scripture that is
yeah,
in
we
there.
dug around and found them. Like that's the I do. It's funny you say that because I do get asked that, and I'm like, it's there's not a secret sauce. It's just we looked really hard, looked up and down and read every word, and made notes on them, and did this sort of like field research
Because
on the
that's the part I
Bible.
don't think Chat GPT could do. I think it could make a
I
cheesy Bible
yeah.
game,
Yeah, and
but
there's
yeah,
definitely nuance to that, and there's like which ones will work, which ones won't work, which ones work for this, which ones don't work for that. Um, I get people will send me stuff all the time because what I really do, one of the things I have enjoyed in kind of adjacent to subjects we've already covered, I like that this is a game that your 12-year-old can play
hmm
and your grandma can play in the family, and it is fun for everybody. I actually
yeah,
do really enjoy that about this, and there's not like I don't I genuinely don't feel like we lost any humor in that. I think the game is as funny and as like entertaining as I could have possibly made it, and
hmm
also has maintained this like your whole family can play it together, because that was another like thing was games like this can be so funny and so fun, but like Cards Against Humanity is the really popular one, and I would you play that sometimes and just icked
yeah. So
out
you're
at
saying
like
there won't be as there are like apples and these other things, Cards Against
yeah.
Humanity. There won't be an adult version that eventually comes out.
It seems to keep coming up
Oh,
that
actually,
that you,
that's
multiple
funny.
people have asked. And it's like it might be fun to do down the line. It might be fun to like I would definitely just want it, branded, and it to be if you don't want this, you don't
Yeah.
have to have it. But we made some decisions
That's
actually
funny.
in this card game in volume 2 where we there were some that were kind of like this might take the game to like a different place. And so we
Okay.
did leave a couple of those out that I thought they might be funny, but they also
Yeah.
are going to be like a different kind of funny. So that
Okay.
has come up multiple
That's
times. Is
funny.
like, what if you did like a this one for like college group or something
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
get a kick out of it. And I was like, I don't know, maybe we'll do that. That might happen. I'm not gonna say no to it. But right
Mhm.
now, volume 1 and volume 2 are super fun for the young adult group right now.
Yeah.
That's what I
Yeah.
hear from a lot. And also like I hear from families that are like, this is just cool. Because the other thing that's fun about games like this is like you just laugh a lot because it's
Uh-huh.
all the ingredients in there are funny ingredients. So it's like everybody I'd say that speaking to like the 12, 13-year-old in the family, and like they just want to be funny. They just want to make people laugh. A lot of them do. And you get to play a funny card and
Yeah.
be a part of this big fun joke. And it's all centered around the Bible, which is the best.
Was there a card or a verse that either you were sure was hilarious and kind of bombed when you tested it, or the
Oh
other
yeah.
way that you, I don't know, one in the game maybe even that you didn't think would be that funny that you had comments about that hit
Oh yeah,
well?
I fail gloriously at this project. One thing that's important to note is I've never won this game. I've tried to play this game many times. I cannot win this game to save my life. But I have a big bank that I start with, and then I have a group of friends and neighbors that we do a ceremony with, where everybody comes in and they're all the cards are on paper strips. And so you essentially play the card game, but you play it like without finish cards,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we keep a tally. So if
Oh,
a
that's
card
awesome.
makes us laugh, we tally it. And so then you go like, well, if it didn't work, and like across the every time we've done it has been like there's like five that I'm like, oh, that's gonna be so funny, and it's like it didn't work ever. It never worked, and I'm like, yeah, well, there you go.
How about what? How about the other way? One though that you maybe you didn't think was that funny, and you're like, oh, that
We we added a fun one in a replacement round of this volume two. It was like volume two is very fun for me. One of the things I love is it has noun jokes. So it's
okay.
biblical noun jokes. The first volume is all somebody talking. Like all the jokes are out of context quotes and then attributing through a prompt to like a modern day situation. And so the second volume we incorporated nouns, and those just make me giggle so much. I think they're very funny. And so we added a verse. I'd have to look up the reference, but the verse refers to a reckless chariot driver, and that's the one that comes to mind when you say that because
Oh,
it
no.
just ended up making me laugh in a lot of different contexts where you might drop a reckless chariot driver into a modern situation.
As you're talking about volume one, I'm thinking, this game is like I don't know, an enacted response to like or example of proof testing. Like in some ways, this should help us study our Bibles better because we're
Yeah,
really realizing how ridiculous it is when we take a verse out of context.
100%. It's always had like a below the surface layer of satire to that type of practice. Like
Okay.
it's just like you can it's essentially a way of saying you can pull a verse out and make it do just about anything.
Yeah.
Um my again and like when I started this whole project, it was like a lot of alarm bells from they're like I'm like, no, this is I'm telling you where my heart is in this and where my intentions are. And I knew the longer the project went on, people would catch on to that. So I was never too bad. But yeah, it's always had that layer of satire of like this is why we got to look stuff up, because if you put it in the wrong spot,
Yeah, I'm
it
sure you're
just
going to get someone out there that's like upset at this, being like, you're taking those out of context without understanding the context of the
yeah.
game. And
But
yep.
that's what we do. Like I try to make it, and that's why I'm happy to place this in the satire category because it's so wildly out of context.
Yeah.
Like so, we're gonna say that this is something that a Peloton instructor might say during a
Sure.
class, which you're very well aware is not the use of that verse.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and like you say, I'm not mad that it might also make you aware when someone else is doing this and they're actually trying to like trick you more into
Mhm.
thinking that's actually what that verse says, by just kind of putting it close enough to an actual meaning. Whereas we here at the Bible's Funny, we take it so far. We
Yeah.
we put it in the car and drive it so far out of context that you will never get confused.
Why do you think the Bible is funnier than people often give it credit for? Like, is that something that we've lost in how we read the Bible? Maybe something like that, even I don't know, that starts in church, even from the pulpit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think why is it funnier than people give it credit for, I think is because we can sometimes allow distinctions between what is human and what is spiritual to we can put a big huge gap there,
Yeah, that's a good point.
um, which is super interesting because at the core story of our entire faith is Jesus coming down in the flesh, is God taking on the flesh to really kind of like with the loudest exclamation point say this is not the canyon you think it is. Um, And so I think when we take funny or joy or laughter or silliness, all of those words, we put them super far on the human side. And there's people that I've been around in churches that are just like, you just feel like they haven't laughed in years because
Yeah.
they're just too spiritual for it. They're just the world is just too serious. Um, and I just think it's just wild to me when you go to the actual fruit of the spirit, and joy is listed, so not only listed but so high on the list, like it's referenced very, very high up there. And so it's like, why would we think these things are so far apart? And
Yeah.
then you go in there and you start kind of like I said, like you go in there and you start turning over all the rocks and stuff, and you're like, you have this like scene on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal, where the prophet's like, maybe your God is going to the bathroom, and that's why he's not talking to you. And you're like, come on, guys, that's funny. Like, how's that not fun? That's how else do we read that? And then as I say that, I know somebody will be like, well, actually, what he was referring to is their practice of, what it's like. I do, but I also think they were humans. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's part of the story. And why would we have a sense of humor and they just didn't ever have it? Like, they didn't ever develop it. We just developed so differently. Like, no, I think people have thought things were funny, um and there's humor in there. There's a whole story where a donkey is like talking back to its owner. Like, this is this is comedic stuff at its core. Like,
Hmm.
this is, and he, like, what's so great about that story is he wins the argument. You think about, like, that donkey has an argument with Balaam, and Balaam loses the argument and has to, like, accept that in real time, that, like, you know what? I think he's, or it's a she. I think she's right. And I think I messed up here. And
Yeah.
that's to me, you're like, that's so funny. And just let it be what it is. It's funny. That's like a very, how would that have struck the ancient Jewish audience? As
Mhm.
shocking, right? As funny. Like, that's a donkey opened its mouth up and started talking. That's the point
Like
of the
if
story.
laughter is part of God's design, then it can't
Yeah,
be true of us and not true of people 3,000 years ago or
100%. I used to love, when I was a kid growing up in church, it was at like every single church, and I don't know where it came from or why it was, but there was just a big old picture of Jesus laughing, like head back,
I
open mouth, laughing. Did you ever see this picture? Do you know what I'm
don't
talking
know. I
about?
haven't seen that.
It's a painting, and it
That's
was the
funny.
one single painting. Like, there was never any variation on it, and it was like at every church in our area. And I just am like, yeah, like, if you take seriously that he was human, he would have laughed. Like, there's not been a human who walked amongst us for 33 years that didn't laugh one time.
Yeah.
Like, so this is all part of it. And I think for most people that's a subconscious disconnection. Like, I don't think they would say these things out
Sure.
loud the way I'm saying them, but I think they would be like, well, that's silly. That's like, you think about, like, any sort of, like, laughter, joy inducing activity, something that's done really, like, to make you laugh and have fun. Well, that's a youth group thing. That's for kids. That's a
Yeah.
childish thing. We come in here to open our textbooks and get down to the original Greek and really
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
some work. And it's like, I don't know why the kids are humans and you're no longer a human.
Hmm.
And, like, this is still how we all function. This is still how this works. Like, so yeah, I think it's those little um concessions or agreements that get made along the way of, like, those things are childish, those things are silly, those things are not holy or spiritual. And I just think, I don't know where, I just would encourage people to kind of rethink those things and go, like, there actually, I don't know why
Yeah.
that distinction has to be made.
The authors have to have laughed at some point too. I always think of the little story at the end of John's gospel where like Jesus shows up on the beach and then he
Uh-huh.
writes it in a way that like Peter took off his cloak, jumped into the water, and then the rest of the disciples sailed to shore because they were only 50 feet from the shore.
Mm.
Like even that just I feel like it just reads so ridiculous that surely John was laughing as he like there was a comedic purpose there that like hey
Yeah.
we were only 50 feet so the rest of us rowed to shore and
Right.
I think there's I
Yeah,
think
little
we don't
details that
think
get,
that the authors are but how could they not use irony use metaphor and not use humor
yeah.
like
Yeah, like,
yeah
we are really quick, like we talked about earlier, and sometimes in our communication and the art that we call Christian is, like, very boxed. And then
hmm
you go to the Old Testament and you go, like, start looking through the way the way God spoke to the Israelites through the prophets. It was shocking. It was like the story of Hosea. Like there was
Yeah.
shocking like mature content kind of things used,
Yeah.
and we like in bread made from like a fire that's made from poop. Like this is like there was like nothing was off limits of like
Yeah.
if the message is being communicated, like nothing was off limits.
Hmm.
And then somehow that gets really super sanitized down into like, well, there's certain topics we can never discuss and certain things we can never
Yeah.
say and certain things we can never. And it's like, it's and I'm it's a big fan of the sentiment from Paul where all things are lawful, not everything's beneficial. So there's, yeah, I agree. I'm not saying this is like go be insane at your next church service, but
Yeah.
I'm saying like the box is just maybe not as small as you think it is.
Yep. This is off topic, and I'll wrap up here, but just kind of a personal question, because I always think this, but from a comedian, like, do you think there's a lot, particularly like preachers, a lot that we can learn from watching good comedians? Like, I just asked that thinking that sometimes I'm convinced that I learn far more from watching like Chappelle or Nate Bargatze or
Hmm.
whatever than from watching other preachers. Uh, just in the, yeah, I don't know, the way they can craft and deliver a message, and there be a layer of humor, and
Yeah.
I don't know. Do
Well,
you think
one
there's
thing
benefits there?
I do 100%, and I think that one thing I think that is useful, and a lot of preachers, a lot of people teaching the Bible have taken to they understand the importance of like incorporating a joke or a moment of levity or comedic relief or whatever. But a comedian is inherently connected to the audience.
Yeah.
Like it is a comedian has to be in the room with the audience, like and be in the room not just physically, but like this is a give and take of a thing. Something like improv, short form improv we do, it's like very connected. Like they're giving ideas and they're super involved. But even stand-up comedian, like there is a connectivity there. And if I was to, so I guess to say yes to your question and then even say one more thing, I think that would be the one thing I would say, like take note of how Nate Bargatze, it's a very polished set.
Yeah.
It's very like, but he is in the room with those people in the room. Like he is
Yeah. That's
not,
a good point.
he is connected to the people in the room. Like it is not him up there doing his bit. And
Yeah.
there's, that's why there's the pauses for laughter. That's where every comedian has like that is so connected to the feeling of like, I got to do more. Like they're eating that up. I got to do more of that. Or
Mhm.
they're not really responding to this. I need to get off of this subject. And there's that like connectivity between a comedian and the audience. And I feel like sometimes preachers they just feel really good about their sermon outline and they get up there and they deliver it and they're not leaving that room for like there's people in the room and
Yeah.
they're participating as well. So what does that look like? Like are you sort of like checking in with them? Are they giving you anything in what you're saying? Is there a subject that maybe you need to spend a little bit more time on because of the way you're kind of feeling that they respond to it.
Yeah.
And so that would be the one, like specifically. So yeah, I think there's definitely something you can learn from the art form of doing comedy when you're preaching or teaching the Bible in any way. And
That's
that would
the
be the
AI.
one thing.
That's the AI piece that that AI will never be able to do, right?
Yeah,
Whether it's comedy or in the church, like the connecting to the
yeah,
people.
right. Yeah, for sure. That's so much of it. And I even think back to like from what I understand, the way that the early temple would work is you were reading the word aloud, and it was like there was like discussion. So it was very like communal. Like this whole thing was very communal. And I sometimes in some church contexts I've been, it just feels very one way. Like it's just sort of like a speakers blasting out that way, and then that's where it stops. There's this sort of like wall there. And again, I'm not advocating for everybody. We've all been one of those kind of, if you've been in church long enough, you've been where they pass the mic around and how quickly it can get off the
Oh, for
rails.
sure.
Not necessarily saying that, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
even if you are doing sort of like a master teacher kind of style, staying connected to go
Hmm.
like, how does that, how is everybody receiving this? How is the experience going here for everybody?
Yeah. Sweet. Uh, Thanks for your time, Anthony. Thank you for the game. I've resigned and I have a few weeks left. So I think I have six Sundays left. So I'm trying to be pretty, I don't know, calculated, maybe even take some more risks in what I how I go out, what are my last sits sermons. So I was thinking this week, I'm like, just kind of out of the box. I'm like, okay, how can I incorporate this into uh, one of our services here in the next 6 weeks?
Yeah.
Because man, my wife and I have loved this, and I would have been a critic. I mean, pretty or critical.
Yeah.
Like I would have been the guy that's like, I don't like, I'll listen to Nate Bargatze probably because he doesn't really call himself a Christian. Because my category of Christian comedy is usually, again, I'm over probably hypercritical of it, being like, that's cheesy or whatever.
Yeah.
Man, I've loved this game, and your podcast and everything. And I'll look forward to the devotional then that connects to this for sure. So
Oh, thank you so
thanks
much,
for all
man.
your work that you clearly did from going to Genesis to Revelation and probably multiple times
Absolutely.
to
And
do
let me
this.
just say before we're done, you're a fantastic podcast host.
I appreciate that.
Those were great
So,
questions. You're inspiring me to be a better podcast host. So great job on you.
I appreciate you saying that. I every time I do this, I'm like, I should not be doing this. Uh,
No
but maybe
way.
the reluctance is I don't know, a good
Oh, you're so
thing.
good. Every question you asked, I was like, because I've been with the volume two release, I've been doing a ton of these, and everybody's been
Yeah, yeah,
wonderful. I don't want everyone that's been on their
sure,
podcast to
yeah,
be
yeah.
like, oh, look at him being a big jerk. But you just every question you asked me was so darn thoughtful and prepared, and you're a great podcast host.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. I definitely don't like coming in unprepared, so I come in over prepared. Uh, but I also was like, I don't have too many questions about the game because I just want to understand how he thinks about comedy. So I appreciate you tackling those questions.